discussing Deluge, the book. I have not finished the book. I gave up about three quarters into the book because I just thought that the narrative became repetitive, predictable, boring, uh, to some extent scary and stressful. And that's credit to the author. No matter what, a novel has to provoke emotions and thoughts. And even if those emotions are stressful, uh, it's actually still, I think, it's a good thing. So, but nevertheless, I gave up because the narrative just became, too repetitive, too boring, too predictable. There's a lot of cliches in the book. There's a lot of false truisms, all kinds of stuff that you don't want to see in a novel. I would say, you know, Stephen Markley's book is probably it's like a B movie. You can read it. This is not Steinbeck. This is not Cormac McCarthy. This is not Julian Barnes. Uh, it's not at that level, in my opinion. But here's the thing. First, I am discussing the book. I usually don't discuss books that I don't finish, but this one I went three quarters into the book, and it's a very long tome, so I think it's worth discussing. And here's why. It's worth discussing for three reasons. One is it's still, I think it's a novelistic, um, it's an artistic piece worth mentioning. Stefan has done some good work in building characters, creating a narrative. I think it just went too long and it became too predictive. Second, why do I want to discuss it? The content of the book is about a catastrophe, and I think we need to take that seriously. I think the catastrophe is climate change. I'm going to discuss this. I am a harsh opponent of framing the problem as climate change simply because, what is the antidote of climate change? Climate what? Non-change? I mean, it's a stupid problem to even go after. However, the underlying causes of it, such as, burning fossil fuels, too much carbon in the atmosphere, those are real problems that I'm happy to tackle, and we actually have a large position in our portfolio, namely Tesla, that is tackling that particular problem. So we are certainly interested in decarbonizing the economy, electrifying the economy, all of those things. I think third, why this novel is important, it shows the dangers that catastrophism brings with it. And catastrophism, what I mean with that is sort of a prelude that we saw with COVID. Like, look, catastrophes happen, bad things happen, but humans react around those catastrophes in certain ways. And we typically have a choice as a species and as a society how to act. We can either act in a constructive way or in a destructive way. And in this book, clearly everything is going towards destruction. At least that's where I ended. I don't know. Maybe the book has a turning point. Maybe it's going to be. I don't know the end of the book. Again, I don't. I only did three quarters of the book. As far as I'm concerned, at this point where I'm in the book, where uh, catastrophes start happening and the government starts intervening left and right. Trillions are being spent. Arrogant bureaucrats are taking over. Know-it-alls, people with so-called models, PhDs, those types, they take over. They do, on the one hand, acknowledge that they don't know much. On the other hand, they take the liberty to start, deciding what should happen and what shouldn't happen, and all of these things. Very similar to COVID. Bureaucrats take over. Liberties are being thrown out of the window. False truisms are being touted as just the truth. And if you don't accept it, you're a bigot. So very similar. I don't know if Stefan has deliberately tried to portray this as a sort of cynical warning signal to what could happen in a real catastrophe, or if he's really serious about it. But I think that's the third thing that I wanted to mention. This is not even on podcast. It's January 14th, 2023. This is Cream Telco. For today, the fund is up 90 basis points. The market's down 20 basis points. For the year, we are down 9.2%. The market is flat, but underperforming by 9.2%. So I'm discussing Deluge, novel by Stephen Markley. I haven't finished the book, as I said. I did 3/4 of the book. I decided to stop because the narrative became boring and predictable, and to some extent stressful to even follow. And let me start with the first one. Actually, let me start with. So, like I said, there's three reasons why I want to discuss the book. One is the artistic side. Second is the actual problem, which is discussed, and third is the real problem that I see that the book is tangentially discussing. And let me start with the third one, actually, because to me that is the stressful. That's the reason why I stopped reading the book, because it became too stressful. And here's why. I think catastrophism is a very dangerous. Um, um, it's a dangerous element that politics and political science and economics and any other social science for that matter is, in my opinion, not paying enough attention. Which is, look, we can have a stable democracy, we can have checks and balances in place, we can have institutions, we can have all of these things. And I was raised academically under the school of Professor Bruno Frey in Zurich under institutional economics, and then in Chicago, of course, I was trained at a sort of University of Chicago level, and I'm certainly aware of the importance of institutions in an economy. Now, those institutions can be completely thrown overboard through catastrophism. And catastrophism is when either catastrophes really happen or when they are predicted to happen by so-called experts. Now, I would argue, this is a hypothesis that I'm willing to make, that an anti-fragile society, a society that is organized along institutions such as democracy, direct democracy, market-driven economy, a society like that actually does well in real catastrophes. When real catastrophes happen, uh, societies like the United States, Western Europe, and the rest of the Western world tend to do well because they're actually organized almost by default, by design, in a way to sustain really tough, really tough situations. So, for example, World War II was a test bed for Western democracy, survived. Uh, COVID was a test bed. I would say we came out of it relatively unscattered as far as our liberties is concerned, as far as the functioning of our society. There's a caveat there. We wasted $5 trillion, which is a debt that we are carrying right now with us. So there's a little bit of a two-edged sword here. But I would say that again, we are the design of our society as far as catastrophes and sustaining catastrophes is concerned is actually adequate. However, where we're not very good at is when people start selling us future catastrophes. Uh, Climate change is the canonical example of that. While climate change is, on the one hand, a problem that is worth tackling, on the other hand, it is first and foremost a very badly designed problem, because the problem of climate change in itself is a bad problem because it's not clear what it actually is. Therefore, it opens the doors to catastrophism, and it opens the doors to demagogues and all kinds of false uh, you know uh, prophets and all of that to take advantage of the situation. It was not very dissimilar with COVID. It was similar with, let's say, under George W. Bush when we were supposedly running out of oil. So whenever these future predictions come into the political discourse, one has to be very, very careful. And the reason is because future predictions can be interpreted one way or the other and can be misused for, catastrophism. I define catastrophism as the deliberate touting of future catastrophes with the intention to gain political power. not with the intention to actually solve those catastrophes. And Stephen Markley's book is actually a very good potential scenario where climate change is going to be misused by all kinds of different parties, all kinds of different political fractions to take advantage of this. There are different characters. For example, Kate Morris is a character that supposedly has good intentions, turns out, in my opinion, into almost a tyrant. There is a character in the book, a bureaucrat who starts his career as a gambler, gambling on basketball games. Supposedly has a PhD from MIT, so supposedly supposed to be smart and all of that. But then he ends up being a bureaucrat that is, almost single-handedly moving, you know, creating a centrally planned economy. There is another character, Tom Peters, in the book, who is the sort of Anthony Fauci of climate change. Maybe grounded in some sort of science, but turns into a tyrant, a real tyrant, where physically also, a bully, excuse my French, an asshole, only cares about his own family. Only, when it comes to his family, of course, anything goes, anything is possible. Nobody has to follow any rules. His family is first, but everybody else has to undergo a strict regime of following orders in the name of saving the planet. So a real asshole. Basically, I don't know if Stephen Markley has done this on purpose to cynically show the dangers of what happens when catastrophism takes over, or maybe he really believes in this. He could be on that side of the political spectrum where he does believe that we need collectivist action and we need a centrally planned economy with scientists who tell us how to behave. I don't know, and I don't want to discuss this further. This is just, to me, a clear warning sign. Look, I think that it's absolutely paramount to maintain the structure of liberty in a society, no matter what the dangers are. Now, I do acknowledge that we have market failures that need to be corrected, and the best way to correct market failure is to improve the markets and not to centrally plan anything. In particular, also, if, let's say, this problem of too much carbon in the atmosphere, actually, if that was a real problem, the only way we could solve that is through dynamic iteration and market-driven actions, and not through central planning. So, in fact, in the book, there is a scene where the author or these bureaucrats who supposedly know how to save the U.S. economy from over carbonizing, but then they attack the centrally planned Chinese economy, which of course is terrible. But then all the actions which are proposed are basically actions that are promoted by the same types of people who run the Chinese economy. So the same types of not the same actual individuals, but the same idea, the same characters, right? People who think that they know better, people who have the audacity to take things into actions into their own hands and decide for other people. So I would say again that the most important lesson of this book is that we are absolutely in danger of catastrophism, that we have to be crystal clear about the dangers of catastrophism, and that climate change is the paramount example, the canonical example of how a future potential catastrophe can be misused by academia and politics, political needs and ambitions. And that is something, as a society, I think we need to strengthen our institutions to prevent catastrophism from undermining our liberties. The second point I wanted to discuss in the context is the actual problem. Now, what's the problem here? It's we are burning too much carbon into the atmosphere. I don't think this is a matter of belief. I think this is a matter of fact, and it does have bad, effects on the. It has effects that could be potentially bad, such as the melting of glaciers and things along those lines. Now, the best way to solve that problem is to decarbonize the economy. I think Tesla has made plenty of arguments for that, has offered solutions. And the one thing that this novel is not offering actually is real technological solutions. The role that innovation and the economy plays in this novel is unfortunately Wall Street. Supposedly, hedge funds on Wall Street can move capital and supposedly, bring change and things like that, which even in this novel is being sort of cynically treated as not realistic and, in my opinion, also completely ridiculous. The only place where real change can happen, where the economy actually can get moved from fossil fuels to a decarbonized economy is through entrepreneurship, technological and scientific innovation. This is, by the way, how we moved from whale oil to oil. This is how we moved from coal to gas and oil. It wasn't the government. It wasn't, you know, some bureaucrat with an MIT PhD who did that. It was entrepreneurs. The fracking industry, for example, enabled an independent U.S. oil industry, things along those lines. They were all done by entrepreneurs and not by government decree and things like that. So, but that's just a tangent. Again, the problem is we need to decarbonize, and we're very happy to engage. Actually, our fund is engaged in that. This is not even a conversation. The conversation again here is catastrophism. That's the problem. It's not the issue of it's not the issue of having climate change is a bad problem because it's not clear what it is. The antidote of climate change, by the way, is what? Climate statism, which is terrible. So we don't want that. And we want to define the problem in such a way that we can solve it. Now, the third thing I want to discuss in the context of Deluge is the artistic part of it. So I think Stephen Markley is a good author. Is I would say a B author, but that's good enough. It's worth reading. I read Ohio. It's definitely good enough. He's a contemporary. He's a journalist. In that sense, he's is a bit like what's his name? The guy who wrote Moneyball. Anyway, he's Tom Wolfe. I guess he's in that family of authors now. He's not as good as them, but he's in that family. And I would say what I really like about this novel is the build-up of characters. What I like is the characters are strong. They are strong. I think where Markley fails is the same way that oh gosh, what's his name? Same way. Michael Lewis, in my opinion, doesn't understand economics. He doesn't understand financial markets. He doesn't understand science. He doesn't understand those fields. He's a very good observer. He observes people. He's a very good people person, but he has, his books are typically, they fail when it comes to the real thing, which when it comes to, let's say, when he writes Flash Boys, yes, he very well written, all of that, but The Big Short, but he just fails to, he doesn't understand the field itself because he's never worked in that field. And I think Markley definitely fails on Wall Street, like having, the idea that you can have models and some sort of AI and then manage money profitably. It's ludicrous. The only people who make money with so-called models are algo traders, which are taking advantage of mean reversion, and that's it. It's not like they have some foresight or any of that stuff. Then the way he portrays, um, in particular Wall Street, but also other things. Let's say, how come that a small group of crazy activists outsmarts the FBI, outsmarts the CIA, outsmarts the U.S. government? Like, you don't have, you've never been part of an activist group, you've never been part of the FBI or CIA. You don't quite understand how these things work. So again, I think very good with people, very good with building characters, weak on the sort of institutional side. Let's say people like, again, Julian Barnes or Cormac McCarthy, two authors that I recently read, they have that understanding. That's what a real good author does. I guess it's research, maybe just understand, maybe just intelligence, maybe smarts. I don't know the details, but I would say that fundamentally that's where the novel fails. But again, I want to turn this on the positive side. the buildup of characters, the buildup of narratives is actually really strong in the novels. To summarize, Deluge by Stephen Markley. Again, I did not finish the book, but from what I've read, three-quarters of the book, strong narratives, very good artistic uh, piece, shows a real problem, which is we have too much carbon in the atmosphere. We have to find ways to decarbonize the atmosphere. And as a third point, I think absolutely, whether intentional or unintentional, I don't know, but shows in a very strong way, shows how dangerous catastrophism is. And this, in my opinion, is something that COVID has shown us, and we have to find ways to strengthen our institutions to protect ourselves against catastrophism, which is the use of future potential catastrophes by the so-called elite to enhance their political powers.